The benefit for me of a wildlife garden is that you can be a lazy gardener and have as much or more pleasure than having a cultivated garden. You're right in the middle of the city, and I don't feel as though I'm in a big city like Bristol. And I've just seen some extraordinary things. I've seen things like even a woodpecker, I've seen jays. The bird life at different times of the year changes. So at the moment, a lot of my annual plants have all died. What I actually do is I just chuck the whole thing behind the tree. Is an area of breaking down vegetation, which is very good for invertebrates. When I bought this house, the whole of the back garden was just concrete. There was a whole pile of sort of old wood. When I started moving it, I was quite surprised to discover there were frogs there. I thought they only lived in ponds, but they live everywhere. I thought, I think that I need a pond here. So that's kind of what started me, first of all. I've got stone walling, so they're not always cemented, so there's gaps for wildlife to get in and out of. I've then got actually a bog garden, which is brilliant because when it gets quite full, it just flows in here, and that's really good for the emerging frogs when they come out. And I edged all the flower beds and the pond with wildflower turf. I couldn't believe the amount of insects that then started arriving. So what we're looking at now is the second year. It is over, but there's a lot of, I even found a slow worm last week. This year I've actually had the goldfinches feeding off my wildflower seed, which is great. The bird feeding, I put out fat balls, mealyworms on the trays, and I've also got fat blocks. I also get visitors like jackdaws and ravens, and as a result of that, when I put the coconut halves, I have to tie string round, otherwise they will actually fly off with the coconut halves. It's quite important to keep everything clean. These are mealyworms. I always soak mine because they go further, they plump up. I think they're better for young birds to eat as well. I get a lot of blue tits, coal tits. You get obviously the starlings, as you can see, and they're all lining up on the aerials. They're wonderfully social birds, the starlings, so obviously word gets around. and they're all telling each other the food's out in this garden. One of the nice things is that at the back I've got an alleyway, and that goes right down to the end of the road, and then the allotments start. It's kind of a wildlife corridor, and as a result of that I've got a hole in my gate which was predominantly for hedgehogs. Sadly I haven't seen hedgehogs for a couple of years, but they've been replaced by foxes and fox cubs, so they can go through. Which is lovely actually. Not everybody likes foxes, but they are particularly charming. What I've discovered having a wildlife garden is that even habitats that we don't think of anything, is that even within the bricks and the lining around the pond, which is sort of open stone, is that bees and other insects actually nest in there. So I have put up bug houses, and you can actually see what's going on, but there's a lot going on. Once you become aware, there's a lot of life going on within your garden that I wasn't aware of until this became a more mature garden. I had bees going in underneath here as well. We had a bumblebee, she had a family there as well. So because there's gaps within the stones, she was going up and coming in, and she did it for about 2 months. So it was lovely watching her because she'd made a home. So there's probably quite a few other creatures that I haven't seen, but it's very good for, rather than having everything neat and tidy, having holes in your stones creates more habitat. I tend to leave things, but actually do much more of a tidy up in the spring rather than the winter, because it's better for anybody because they've got habitats that they can use over the winter. And then down the side, hardly gets any sunlight at all, so that's my shaded area. So I've planted that with shade-loving plants and ferns, and I've also got some toad abodes, so I know that the frogs will kind of hide there. So this is a toad abode, very, very cheaply acquired at one of those German supermarkets. So I've got 2 of those. because they like hiding under things so they can go in there. And the other thing is my hostas, they're not so good now, but the snails like them. But there's a very good method of stopping snails from eating hostas, and that's spraying them with garlic water, which I make myself. There are quite a lot of methods that you can dissuade unwanted pests without poisoning them. Ivy is very good because it feeds insects during the winter, because it flowers during the winter. It's lovely to sit out in the summer with friends and just kind of look around you and enjoy what you see. It's kind of nature doing its own thing. I find the wildlife side of it is much more compelling than having a structured garden, which I tried so hard to do before. I feel as though you're fighting against things all the time, whereas now I'm just much more relaxed about it all.